Part of the and then part of the way to deal with this issue of different amounts of peak brightness or peak luminance coming off of different TVs and different display monitors, broadcast and mastering monitors and so on, is something called tone mapping, which we talked about last week. And I don't want to get deeply into it here, but that requires the use of something called metadata, which tell us just briefly how metadata and tone mapping allow different TVs with different peak brightness to coexist.
Yeah, the big advantage of HDR, of the new HDR 10 system, for example, is that we have a big container, 2020 as a container, and up to 10,000 nits. And this container is capable of reproducing or of covering current color gamuts, including cedar gamuts like P3, and brightness levels up to 10,000 nits, which is nothing that a current TV could do. So we are prepared for the future. And of course, the professional devices like the production monitors, which are very expensive, we are talking about like $30,000 or so, they of course have higher brightness capabilities, and sometimes they have higher color gamut capabilities, meaning they can reproduce a bigger color space, more saturated colors, and these things. So there's a mismatch in between these professional production devices and the devices that we have at home. And this mismatch needs to be communicated. And this is what the metadata is for. The metadata is defining the situation that was existent in the mastering when the content was mastered. With this information, the TV knows, how do I remap? How do I interpret whatever comes in as an image to my own capabilities? So in general, coming out of a fixed system 709 with a fixed peak brightness, with a fixed color gamut and gamma, coming out of such a system, we're now leading to a system that is very, very flexible and prepared for the future, whatever that will be. We'll see bigger color gamuts, we'll see bigger brightness capabilities, and all these things are covered by metadata. So in order to make it flexible, we need the metadata about the mastering situation. It's all about knowing what the creative intent was all about.
Right, and then reproducing that as accurately as any given display will allow based upon its own capabilities.
Exactly, and that's what tone mapping is for. So, for example, we have a mastering monitor with 4,000 nits, and this mastering monitor, this content that was mastered on this mastering monitor is ending up on an Ultra HD Blu-ray, and the TV that we're using at home is probably able of doing 800 nit. So we need to make sure to find a way of reproducing the areas of brightness within the capabilities of the TV. And that's what the tone mapping is essentially doing.
It's remapping what was seen on the 4,000 nit display to the 800 nit display and what it can do without a lot of clipping. That's one thing that we have to make sure everybody understands, is that if you just let the luminance go up to 800 nits and then from 800 to 4,000, the TV can't do it, so it's all just flat. That looks pretty bad.
Yeah, clipping means you're losing information. Clipping means your details in the highlights or in the shadows. Sometimes we have shadow clipping as well. Your details are getting lost. Like I can see it in the image here. The detail in my shirt is lost because of the high amount of brightness. Here you can see all the lines. There it's lost. So that's a situation that we can avoid with HDR and correct metadata.
Here, of course, what you're seeing in this image is standard dynamic range. So
exactly.
With no metadata, nothing at all. And I think that's a great example of using something that we're actually looking at right this minute. If we had metadata and HDR, then you would be able to see more detail in the bright part of your shirt.
Exactly.